Okay, hello everybody. It is finally Friday. Weekend, kind of. All right, or I should say, I'm here at the camper. Beth is there at the box at home. We are still reading this. We are in Daniel chapter 11, Kings of the South and North. Daniel chapter 11, starting at verse 2. Now then, I will reveal the truth to you. 3 more Persian kings will reign, to be succeeded by a fourth, far richer than the others. He will use his wealth to stir up everyone to fight against the kingdom of Greece. Then a mighty king will rise to power who will rule with great authority and accomplish everything he sets out to do. But at the height of his power, his kingdom will be broken apart and divided into 4 parts. It will not be ruled by the king's descendants, nor will the kingdom hold the authority it once had, for his empire will be uprooted and given to others. The king of the south will increase in power, but one of his own officials will become more powerful than he and will rule his kingdom with great strength. Some years later, an alliance will be formed between the king of the north and the king of the south. The daughter of the king of the south will be given in marriage to the king of the north to secure the alliance, but she will lose her influence over him, and so will her father. She will be abandoned along with her supporters. But when one of her relatives becomes king of the south, he will raise an army and enter the fortress of the king of the north and defeat him. When he returns to Egypt, he will carry back their idols with him, along with the priceless articles of gold and silver. For some years afterward, he will leave the king of the north alone. Later, the king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but will soon return to his own land. However, the sons of the king of the north will assemble a mighty army that will advance like a flood and carry the battle as far as the enemy's fortress. Then, in a rage, the king of the south will rally against the vast forces assembled by the king of the north and will defeat them. After the enemy army is swept away, the king of the south will be filled with pride and will execute many thousands of his enemies, but his success will be short-lived. A few years later, the king of the north will return with a fully equipped army far greater than before. At that time, there will be a general uprising against the king of the south. Violent men among your own people will join them in fulfillment of this vision, but they will not succeed. Then the king of the north will come and lay siege to a fortified city and capture it. The best troops of the south will not be able to stand in the face of the onslaught. The king of the north will march onward unopposed. None will be able to stop him. He will pause in the glorious land of Israel, intent on destroying it. He will make plans to come with the might of his entire kingdom and will form an alliance with the king of the south. He will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom from within, but his plan will fail. After this, he will turn his attention to the coastland and conquer many cities. But a commander from another land will put an end to his insolence and cause him to retreat in shame. He will take refuge in his own fortresses, but will stumble and fall and be seen no more. His successor will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor, but after a very brief reign he will die, though not from anger or in battle. The next to come to power will be a despicable man who is not in line for royal succession. He will slip in when least expected and take over the kingdom by flattery and intrigue. Before him, great armies will be swept away, including a covenant prince. With deceitful promises, he will make various alliances. He will become strong despite having only a handful of followers. Without warning, he will enter the richest areas of the land. Then he will distribute among his followers the plunder and wealth of the rich, something his predecessors had never done. He will plot to overthrow of the strongholds, but this will last for only a short time. Then he will stir up his courage and raise a great army against the king of the south. The king of the south will go to battle with a mighty army, but to no avail. There will be plots against him. His own household will cause his downfall. His army will be swept away, and many will be killed. Seeking nothing but each other's harm, these kings will plot against each other at a conference table, attempting to deceive each other. But it will make no difference, for the end will come at the appointed time. The king of the north will then return home with great riches. On the way he will set himself against the people of the Holy Covenant, doing much damage before continuing his journey. At the appointed time he will once again invade the south. But this time the result will be different, for warships from western coastlands will scare him off, and he will withdraw and return home. But he will vent his anger against the people of the Holy Covenant and reward those who forsake the covenant. His army will take over the temple fortress, pollute the sanctuary, put a stop to the daily sacrifices, and set up sacrilegious objects that causes desecration. He will flatter and win over those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will be strong and will resist him. Wise leaders will give instruction to many, but these teachers will die by fire and sword, or they will be jailed and robbed. During these persecutions, little help will arrive, and many who join them will not be sincere. And some of the wise will fall victim to persecution. In this way, they will be refined and cleansed and made pure until the time of the end, for the appointed time is still to come. The king will do as he pleases, exalting himself and claiming to be greater than every god, even blaspheming the God of gods. He will succeed, but only until the time of wrath is completed. For what has been determined will surely take place. He will have no respect for the gods of his ancestors, or for the God loved by women, or for any other god, for he will boast that he is greater than them all. Instead of these, he will worship the God of fortresses, a God his ancestors never knew, and lavish on him gold, silver, precious stones, and expensive gifts. Claiming this foreign god's help, he will attack the strongest fortresses. He will honor those who submit to him, appointing them to positions of authority and dividing the land among them as their reward. Then, at the time of the end, the king of the south will attack the king of the north. The king of the north will storm out with chariots, charioteers, and vast navy. He will invade various lands and sweep through them like a flood. He will enter the glorious land of Israel, and many nations will fall. But Moab, Edom, and the best part of Ammon will escape. He will conquer many countries, and even Egypt will not escape. He will gain control over the gold, silver, and treasures of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians will be his servants. But then news from the east and the north will alarm him. He will set out in great anger to destroy and obliterate many. He will stop between the glorious holy mountain and the sea, and will pitch his royal tents. But while he is there, his time will suddenly run out, and no one will help him. And now the commentary. The angelic messenger was revealing Israel's future. Only God can reveal future events so clearly. God's work not only deals with the sweeping panorama of history, but also focuses on the intricate details of people's lives. And his plans, whether for nations or individuals, are unshakable. The fourth Persian king may have been Xerxes, also called Ahasuerus, 486 to 465 BC, who launched an all-out effort against Greece in 480. Babylon was defeated by Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia was defeated by Greece under Alexander the Great, who conquered most of the Mediterranean and Middle Eastern lands. After Alexander's death, the empire was divided into four parts. The Ptolemies gained control of the southern section of Palestine, and the Seleucids took the northern part. Daniel 11:2-20 shows the conflict between the Ptolemies and the Seleucids over control of Palestine in 300 to 200 BC. Daniel 11:21 through 35 describes the persecution of Israel under Antiochus IV Epiphanes. The prophecy then shifts to the end times. Antiochus IV fades from view, and the Antichrist of the last days becomes the center of attention. This mighty king of Greece was Alexander the Great, who conquered Medo-Persia and built a huge empire in only 4 years. Eventually, Alexander the Great's empire was divided into 4 nations. These 4 weaker nations were comprised of the following nations: 1, Egypt; 2, Babylonia and Syria; 3, Asia Minor; and 4, Macedonia and Greece. The king of Egypt, the king of the south, was Ptolemy the First, or perhaps a reference to the Ptolemaic dynasty in general. These prophecies seem to have been fulfilled many years later in the Seleucid Wars between Egypt and Syria in 252 BC. Ptolemy II of Egypt, the south, gave his daughter Berenice in marriage to Antiochus II of Syria, the north, to finalize a peace treaty between their 2 lands. But Berenice was murdered by Antiochus by Antiochus II's former wife, Laodice. Berenice's brother, Ptolemy III, ascended the Egyptian throne and declared war against Seleucids to avenge his sister's murder. The king of Syria, which is the north, was Seleucus II, and the king of Egypt, the south, was Ptolemy IV. The king of the north may have been Antiochus III the Great. He defeated many Egyptian cities and established himself in Israel, the glorious land. He was later defeated by the Romans at Magnesia. The invader, Antiochus III, tried to bring peace between Egypt and Syria by having his daughter marry Ptolemy V Epiphanes of Egypt, but the plan failed. The successor to Antiochus III was Seleucus IV. He sent Heliodorus to collect money from the temple treasury in Jerusalem. Seleucus IV was succeeded by his brother Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who found favor with the Romans. The great armies refer to the way all opposition against Antiochus IV will be broken. The covenant prince may be the high priest Onias III, who was assassinated by Menelaus in 170 BC. These 2 treacherous kings were probably Antiochus IV of Syria and Ptolemy IV of Egypt. Treachery and deceit are a power broker's way to position oneself over someone else. When 2 power brokers try to gain the upper hand, it is a mutually weakening and self-destructive process. It is also futile because God ultimately holds all the power in his hands. Antiochus IV again invaded the south, but enemy ships caused him to retreat. On his way back, he plundered Jerusalem, desecrated the temple, and stopped the Jews' daily sacrifices. The temple was desecrated when he sacrificed pigs on an altar erected to honor Zeus. In honor of Zeus, according to Jewish law, pigs were unclean and were not to be touched or eaten. To sacrifice a pig to a false god in the temple was the worst kind of insult an enemy could level against the Jews. This happened in 168 to 167 BC. This reference to those who have violated the covenant may include Menelaus, the high priest, who was won over by Antiochus and who conspired with him against the Jews who were loyal to God. The people who know their God may refer to Maccabees and their sympathizers, but a further fulfillment may lie in the future. Those who are wise will teach many, but they will also face great persecution. Difficult times show up our weaknesses and our inability to cope. We want answers, leadership, and clear direction. During these times, God's Word begins to interest even those who would never look at it otherwise. We should look for opportunities to share God's Word in hard times. We must also be prepared to face persecution and rejection as we teach and preach. God's messenger described a time of trial when even wise believers would fall victim to persecution. If we persevere in our faith, any such experience will only refine us and make us stronger. Are you facing trials? Recognize them as opportunities to strengthen your faith. If you remain steadfast in these experiences, you will be stronger in your faith and closer to God. These verses could refer to Antiochus' 4 epiphanies, Titus, the Roman general, or the Antichrist. Some of these events may have been fulfilled in the past, and some have yet to be fulfilled. The god loved by women may refer to Tammuz, a Babylonian fertility god. Tammuz was also mentioned in Ezekiel 8:14 and 8:14. In other words, this person won't recognize any deity or religions at all, not even pagan ones. Instead, he will proclaim himself to be a divine and the ultimate power. The god of fortresses is believed by some to be Jupiter or Zeus. The implication is that the king will make war his god. More than all his predecessors, he will wage war and glorify its horrors. The Antichrist of the last days becomes a center of attention from this point through the rest of the book of Daniel. The glorious holy mountain is Mount Zion, or the city of Jerusalem. It's a lot of commentary, a lot to read there, a lot to take in. So it looks like, looking ahead, it looks like we'll be finishing up Daniel 12 next time we get together. And looking at, we got a lot of commentary to read there too, but interesting to be sure. End times always interest us, especially now. We seem, obviously we're closer now than we ever have been, and it just seems to be coming at us fast. So hope everybody has a good start to your weekend and have a glorious weekend, and we'll talk to you later.